Welcome to the Gritty Podcast. I am your host, Brian Call, and today I'm with Brad Hunt, and this is part 3 of our Elk Hunt podcast series that we're putting together. It's been a few days.
Yeah.
Since our last podcast. They've been about, 30 minutes or so in the evening. But you get to hunting and it's hard to squeeze the podcast in.
Especially when you're hunting till last light and you just want to go to bed and eat.
Yep.
Sometimes eat dinner. Sometimes we don't even do that.
And we planned a podcast during the day when we're just kind of in a standstill spot, but we have been going full speed, pedal to the metal on all the on the hunts, which is great. You know, we've been into elk every day, and so we just didn't have time, but we just pulled out of the woods. We are in my truck, so if you hear some background noise, it's because we're driving down the road. We're going to give you a little update on the hunt. We're just going to recharge some batteries, camera batteries, download some stuff, get some more food, and then we're getting back after it. And but we wanted to kind of talk about the hunt so far, what's working, what's not working. We are not going to get into the deep details on success or not success, because we want you to soak it all up in the Gritty video series that we're planning to put together of this hunt. So we don't want to give anything away. We want you to watch it, but we do want to get into the hunt itself and how it's unfolding, and what's kind of happened in the last couple of days, kind of at a higher level. With that said, we found a bull that is quite handsome. He's
a nice bull, especially for a public land bull. That's for sure. Like he's a stud.
Yeah.
And he's been fun to go after.
Right.
We've had a lot of other options on other bulls, but just, I don't know. You can't kill the big one if you don't go after the big one.
Which brings up a point. So, folks, mostly Brad's been doing the hunting. I've been carrying the camera. I got on one bull.
Yep.
And it was I should have killed that bull. You're gonna have to watch the film and get all the details. But I feel like I should have killed every bull that I'm ever close to. Right? Like it's always just But that's bow hunting. But we've been really good about getting into areas and not blowing out any of the animals.
Yeah.
If we don't have the right scenario, then we're holding back and we're waiting until we get that scenario. So the idea is, these elk will just stay in these basins and in these pockets if we can just never let them know that we're there.
Yep.
And then if the hunt doesn't quite work out, then we just kind of backed up, and that's what we did.
Yep, exactly. And I know I used to be one of those guys that didn't have the days to do that. You have 1 or 2 days, you're going to run a gun, you're going to gamble, you're going to go balls to the wall to get it done. But you also blow a lot of elk out at the same time, where we got the days, we're able to watch these elk. I guess you'd almost call it patterning them, because they've been doing a lot of the same thing, especially when they're not being pressured that much. So if the opportunity's not there, we've been able to back out and turn around the next day and do the same scenario and get within range.
And we're on a public land, kind of over-the-counter type hunt, and this is highly competitive. There's a lot of hunters, but you climb enough peaks and you go far enough back into some of these areas, or you just go to the type of steeps that other guys don't have the heart to climb.
Yep.
And you're going to have quite a bit of animals to yourself, which has been the case.
Exactly. I mean, it's been a grind. We've been out, we came out for a day, went back in. We've been in, this is our sixth day, something like that. It's been a grind. I mean, every day you're burning a lot of calories just to get to the elk, even though we're already camped up there. But getting to them, it's a long hike back up to get back out of these draws and canyons. That's a long ways to get over there. We've been pretty lucky with good weather, with the exception of last night.
Yeah, last night we got hit by a hurricane. It was brutal.
Yep, but it takes so much effort, especially since we are being a little more picky, I guess, towards a more mature bull. It's that much harder, and you got to grind that much harder to be successful.
Yeah.
So,
well, and there's more nerves and intensity when you're chasing, a giant bull versus a raghorn or a younger bull. It's just the stakes are just a little higher. But those big mature herd bulls also have 20 to 40 cows around them.
Exactly.
And so you're not just sneaking up on one critter, you're sneaking up on 30 of them.
Yep.
And all it takes is the wind to shift one way or another, and the hunt's over.
Or a wrong move. I mean, you could lift your hand too high, your bow too high, and one of those cows sees that, man, game over. It's done.
And it's fairly open country, but it's steep. But because of how far in we are and the type of country we're in, we are getting the elk to ourselves, mostly.
Yep.
We've run into very few hunters, which gives us the luxury of actually just, because we're backpacked in, this is not a thing where you're going to go in for a day and come out for a day to this spot. Not unless you're like hyper fit. That's why I think most guys, everyone we're seeing, they're on horses or llamas, and they're only going in so far.
Right. They'll run the ridges or whatever, but they're not dropping down into these deep,
they're not going where we're going.
Yeah, exactly.
But that has been cool because we have the luxury of just kind of going, okay, look at them. They're bedded there. They watered here. This time of day they went there. And this giant bull, we watched him for a couple of days, and we kind of could see what they would do. And he was bedding in the same draw.
Yep.
And we had a plan to, well, it's funny because we were walking a ridge and we could see this bull for a long time, but we saw this other bull that we call the mountain goat bull, and he was up in these cliffs like a mountain goat.
Yep.
And he looked so killable, folks. Like killable.
You knew the wind was going to be blowing hard in your face, opposite of where he was. You had lots of cover getting there. His cows were below him. Like, everything to a T was perfect to kill that bull.
And I'm carrying the camera. My bow is like, I don't know, an hour and a half back at base camp or spike camp. So I'm filming, dedicated to filming, and Brad has the bow. So Brad's deciding what animal he wants to kill. He has a nice, 300-inch 6x6.
Right, yep.
That is kind of a gimme, like in the hand gimme. And then there's the giant bull, maybe 340, pushing 340.
Yeah.
On the other side of this spine we're walking down. And he has to make a call, which bull, the one that's kind of like a bird in the hand, or the other one. And I'm like, I'm kind of secretly hoping, I have mixed emotions. Like, I want to tag out on a nice bull.
Right.
But you said, your goal this year has been to kill a big bull.
Yep.
And if you go home without a bull, then so be it. And your goal is to kill a bull bigger than what you've killed in the past. And this bull, the mountain goat bull, is a great bull, but he's not bigger than what you've killed in the past. You spent a lot of years killing bulls, and you're like, So we went for the big one, the Mongo.
Yeah. I was torn because it's like, man, like you said, that one bull.
If I had my bow that day, that bull, I would have gone for that bull and killed it.
Right. But I'm in my head the whole time. I'm like, okay, you know what? You can't kill the big bulls if you don't go after the big bulls.
I need you to kill so I can start hunting.
I know, it's true. Hey, I told you I'm up to filming. We did on the one bull and just never got an opportunity. So, but yeah, I was like, you know what? We need to go after that big bull.
Yeah.
And he was in a pretty stockable spot. It wasn't 100% perfect. But I just.
Well, and I always think, a tag is a personal thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to pressure anybody into taking an animal that they don't want to take, that they're not excited to take.
Right.
And I could tell after a few minutes, it wouldn't matter if that other bull was tied to a tree. Like, in a total gimme. You're just like, that's not the bull you wanted. Now, we both talked about how, maybe on the last few days, that'll be the bull you want.
Yeah, exactly.
But right now, while there's still days, there's a goal to try to hold out.
Right. Yeah,
and you've never done that before, really?
No, not at all, not ever. Those 16 bulls that I've killed, I've had maybe a weekend, a long weekend, 3 days, 4 days tops. I've never even been fortunate enough to really even take a bunch of vacation days to go on a hunt because other family events and stuff where it was run and gun. I used to be that weekend warrior to whatever. And so I was going in there and I was basically killing the first 5 point or bigger. And I did that a lot. But this year I'm like, no, I'm focusing on taking a big bull. Mm-hmm. And so when I sat there debating, I'm like, okay, do I go after that bull? Do I go after the big bull? And we walked actually back and forth probably 2 or 3 times across that ridge because we're like, I don't know. And
as a film guy and a hunter, I just saw the mountain goat location as like so picturesque.
Killer, yeah.
Like such a cool area with all the boulders and rocks. And it's not where you expect to see an elk at all.
Right.
I've seen some elk like that in Colorado and some really high mountain areas and stuff. But it was cool. And I knew that bull probably would die.
Yeah.
You just can tell sometimes you have sensarios that are set up.
Right, exactly.
I hated to leave that behind.
And I could feel that. Like, I knew that you were like, man, that's a perfect situation. We can get a bull on film in open country, public land. But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? I feel that we can still do that with that big bull.
Yeah.
And
we still have like 13, 12, 14 days or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, well, why not?
Yep.
I
made the call and I was like, no, we're going after the big boy.
And we actually knew where he was. We were able to kind of triangulate his position on a map and then go, okay, this is where we need to get to. And you're working your stock out.
Yep.
And on your map and stuff. And so when you get over, we're taking photos with my phone and your phone of the terrain from one side of the mountain. So when you get over there, you can recognize where you're at just by looking at some pictures.
Yep, exactly.
And we basically snuck right in on that bull and got to about 150 yards.
Yep.
But the problem, we knew this going over there. We were just kind of, our plan was to get close, and then you never know what'll happen.
Yep,
They might get up and feed right to you. We just knew we had to keep the wind right. But unfortunately, there were too many cows between him and us that you couldn't get into him.
Yeah, there was just really no other way. Even if you belly crawled or slid on your butt, there was just too much in between where we were and where he was to just blow it out of there.
And let's talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of dudes, including myself in years past, you're so close. You're 150 yards. You're like, right. I just need to get a little bit closer. And you push in and you blow them out and they leave the canyon.
Yep.
Right? But now I'm a lot more patient. It's like, okay, I kind of set up a 2-tier victory for myself.
Yep.
Like, if I sneak in and get really close, but they never knew I was there and I backed out, I win. Like, that's a victory.
Yep.
If they never know I'm there, it's a victory.
Exactly. And I think the key to that is, and you and Ryan have always said that, Lampers, is plan at least a 10-day hunt. Give yourself time. For those guys that don't have that time, it's hard to make that call because you don't have days. You can't really back out, I guess. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to be successful that way because you're going to push in, you're going to blow stuff out. But where we have the days, I mean, being able to back out on that bull, nothing spooked, everything's undisturbed. The next morning, we can watch them and they're still in the exact same spot.
And in fact, on this particular giant bull, I should say giant for any public land bull, right, over the counter. This bull, he is in there, and now he like textbook. He beds at the very top of a ridge, or, at the top of a ravine, and all of his 50 cows are below him.
Right. And this is the next day.
Yep.
After we backed out and everything.
And I'm sitting there the next morning going, this is why you have patience. Yep. This is why you wait and you back out and you wait till the right day. There he is. He's bedded up high. Wind is ripping just right, just the right amount of wind.
Yep.
Blowing uphill, perfect conditions. There's enough cover to sneak in on him, and
everything's perfect. But you still have to be so cautious on your stock.
I think it took us 3 hours or something.
Yeah, a little over 3 hours to
close like 200 yards or something like that.
Right. Yep.
And get in bow range. So we're not going to tell you about the whole thing. Like I said on that, we want you to watch the films when they come out. But, what I wanted to cover was the patience part. if possible, waiting for the right scenario
Yep.
to know when to strike and when to like just watch and hang back and shadow, and it's a skill.
Exactly.
It takes some time, but that patience, man, if you have days, you act so different than if you're just bombing there for the weekend.
For sure. And that's, even when we started this hunt, I told you I was going to have to completely retrain my mind because, I've been that 1-2 day hunt guy, and so I've been in kill mode, get in there, and been lucky I've got it done, but it's hard to retrain yourself to like, okay, when I don't have to press it, back out. They're still there the next day. It's hard to reteach yourself that, but
and I think if you're not careful, I've seen guys spend the whole hunt just watching from a distance and never like go for it.
Right.
It's like it's a balance. There's a time to like go full speed commitment. I'm going in. This bull is set up in a killable spot, or you know what? Not much we can do about this. You were talking about the storm. We got hit by like just ridiculous winds. I had the teepee up, and we had kicked out deer beds on the steep slope because that's all there is. There's no flat spot.
Right.
And we got back from the hunt, and we didn't have much time to pack out and go somewhere else to where the wind was better or where we could hit a saddle or something. And we didn't want to blow out the remaining elk that are in these little canyons, and our wind wouldn't be right if we camped on that. So, anyway, we ended up just setting up on the top.
Yep.
And but it was a slope. I kicked out of bed, and so did Trevor, my cousin Trevor, and we kicked out some beds and we threw that teepee on a side hill, like sideways, which is not ideal.
No.
You threw up a tarp that was like a hobo shelter, and then the hurricane hit, and rain, winds. I mean, it was nightmarish.
It was like, I don't know how hard the wind was blowing last night, but it was strong. And with the rain too, rain was going sideways, and initially the wind was good for both our setups, but mine where my door was, because again, this tarp has an open end to it.
Yeah.
And yet when the rains came, it was faced the wrong way. Luckily, I was able to get to a little higher spot inside my tent where I kicked my bed out and lay on that. But yeah, it was pretty brutal last night. Luckily it wasn't cold, because if it was cold and wet, it'd have been a different story.
Yeah. Well, I had to drop that center pole on the teepee. It just, the wind picked up so much. I was like, okay, we're going to it's going to rip the whole teepee off the mountain. So I dropped that center pole, gathered the loose material, and just hunkered down. And the rain was pouring, and it was just whipping hard. And I was probably hunkered like that for about 2 hours, and then water started to find its way in, just because you got seams and you got zippers and you got vents and everything.
See, I took one for the team, allowed Brian and Trevor to take the teepee, be covered. I had an open end tarp, but I was actually pretty comfortable. It started, the rain, it was coming off of your guys' teepee, started running into my
your tarp was a much better, on a mountainside like that in a deer bed. The tarp was, a 1.5 feet off the ground?
Yep.
The teepee's like 6 feet tall.
Yep.
It was like a sailboat sail,
Yep. If I'd have been smart, I would have stuck my tarp in my bed, like right behind your guys', so the wind wouldn't have blown in mine. But
yeah.
But I already had a bed kicked out from the 5 nights before, so
yeah, we've been sleeping out under the stars for over a week.
Yep.
And it's been nice weather, a little windy sometimes, but we didn't even bother with shelters. But last night, holy smokes, man.
Yeah,
it was like we made up for it all in one day.
Luckily, we looked at the weather, because that would have been...
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Because it didn't look like it was going to be that bad.
No. And it said, like, the nearest towns, it said maybe like 10, 20% chance of rain between these hours, but it hit pretty early last night. And
it was gross.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad little storm.
But after the rain, after a few hours of hunkering down, I put the pole back up the center, and she stayed up. She stayed up all night, and I got a lot of dirt in my mouth. I woke up. That's how I woke up. Because before the rain came, it was just wind, nasty wind, and a dust storm like flew off the mountain and just engulfed the teepee, and then it went under the teepee around the base and blew inside, and the inside was just like
a tornado of
like
dust.
A tornado of dirt. When Trevor and I got up this morning, there was like a layer of dirt on everything.
Yeah. Yep. I don't think I had it as bad being out and open.
Yeah.
I just think it was kind of blowing underneath your guys' teepee and then just circulating through the teepee. Because I had.
Well, it was all that loose dirt from kicking out those deep beds.
Yep. And mine was pretty covered by my tarp on the bottom, and then, of course, the tarp wrapped around the top. Yeah. I didn't have near as much dirt as you guys, which I guess you could say I was fortunate.
It was intense. But what I was going to say was that brought on some heavy winds and stormy weather last night and today. And what happened, these critters, these prey animals, they rely on their ears, their eyes, and their noses.
Yep.
And I would say their nose one, ears second, and their eyes last.
Yep.
And when the wind is ripping, we notice this when we're hunting coos in Arizona.
Yep.
You know, mule deer in like, I don't know, Alberta. They don't like the wind.
Yeah.
Because it really does, especially if it's blowing super hard. They can't smell.
Yep.
Because it's just blowing so hard.
It pretty much takes two of those three senses that they really, really rely on.
They can't hear at all.
Yep.
It freaks them out.
Yeah.
It freaks them out. They can't hear and they can't smell.
Yep. And we noticed this morning because the wind was just ripping across up the face of those hills and across the tops, and all those elk kind of got to a spot where it maybe wasn't as windy, kind of a little bit of a windbreak, but the wind's ripping so hard over top of them and stuff that they can't hear and they can't smell. And so you have bunches of 20, 30 head of elk that are all standing up pretty much all day, just scanning 360 because they're freaked out because they can't hear or smell.
Yeah, that's the one thing we noticed. Like on every ridge, like all the elk that are normally down in those cuts and stuff, they all went up in a herd and stood at the top of knobs.
Yep.
And just stood there looking like sentinels in all directions because they couldn't hear and they can't smell. So they're just like, all right, we're just going to stand up here as a group and just use our eyes. And they were very conscious. Yeah. And which we were sitting there going, okay, how do we stalk this group? Okay. Oh, there's that herd bull with that group on this mountain. And we were looking around. We saw probably 4 groups, and we're like, none of them are that killable.
Right.
Despite the fact that the wind is ripping. It was almost like so much wind that it was a disadvantage to both us and them.
Yep.
And then it picked up so hard, I was like, it was knocking me over.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, man, it can be so hard to hold your bow up in that situation because, I mean, yeah, obviously we love the wind, and putting those stalks on those bulls we have already that we had was the wind was blowing. It gave us the opportunity to stalk in on them. Without the wind, we probably couldn't have made those stalks
It was a pretty
successful.
Good that day with your big bull. There a lot of wind that day.
Yep.
Plus, he bedded in the right spot in the right conditions.
Right.
But this was hurricane winds.
Yeah. And in that situation, it's like it's almost impossible. Yeah, you can slip in close because they can't hear you. They can't really smell you. But at the same time, who knows where your arrow is going to go when you loose it at those animals. Are you going to be able to hold your bow steady? And are you going to even be able to get in that close because you got to take a different route?
Yeah, I put my arms up and it was like someone just shoving me like 2 feet right. You know, I'm like, no. And you never know when it might die down and you're within 30 yards, you know, and you're like, boom, here I am. I love pushing it in the wind. But, you know, the other thing that we have considered, though, is we really had great hunts Monday through Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Saturday comes and Sunday, and it sucks.
Yep. Yeah, your guys will come in. We watch that stock go down
I can't
this
believe
morning.
how many people come in on the weekends.
We spotted a small raghorn and a pretty nice herd bull with a couple cows right on top of this knob, and we're like, man, they are in a very killable position or place.
Yeah.
And so we're like trying to decide whether or not we're going to put the stock on it or whatever. And Trevor goes, oh, there's a guy. And the guy's like 100 yards, has no idea. He's walking up the ridge. The wind's at his back pretty much. And it's like, oh, this is going to blow up in a hurry. So let's just, I guess, sit back and watch it all go down.
Yep.
And he realizes the elk are there. He backs up. He goes around the knob. And
what did I say? I said, if this guy has any skill whatsoever, that bull is dead meat.
Right.
The wind, the scenario, the situation, everything was perfect to kill.
They were no more than 40 yards off the top of that ridge. There's brush at the top of that.
Facing away from the ridge.
Every elk was facing the perfect direction for him to make a kill. And you could sneak up close.
Big bull.
And
it kind of made me sick to my stomach watching. I mean, I'm always excited for another dude's success, but not when it's the bull I wanted to kill.
Right.
You know? And so we watched it go down, but I wasn't, like I said, if the gentleman had some pretty good skills, that bull was dead meat.
Yep.
But if he's kind of your weekend archer, hasn't done it a lot, those bulls are completely safe.
Yep. So I'm sitting there watching him through the spotting scope, and I can't see the guy at this time. You don't know where he went. Like, we knew he went around the knob, but I'm not sure where he's at. And I'm watching the raghorn, and you can barely see the big bull. He's kind of tucked way down deep in the brush, and you can just see his tips of his dagger tines. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the raghorn just stands up, kind of looks around like, something's not right here. So we're trying to look and see, trying to figure out where the guy's at. And out of nowhere, the guy appears into the
skyline.
Skyline right into the spotting scope.
Boom.
And I told Trevor, I'm like, holy crap, like, he's close. He cannot be any more than 40 or 45 yards from these elk. And we're sitting there watching it, and it's like, man, the raghorn started walking, and I was like, that raghorn's dead. Like, that guy's going to smoke it. Mm-hmm. You know, and I don't know if he'd seen the big bull or not. The guy standing up, I mean, not even trying to keep his head the same level or below the brush like you should be doing. He's standing up, and he's walking towards these elk, ready to draw. And about the time he can see them good enough to draw and shoot, all the elk they're onto him.
Yeah.
Because he's standing straight up, skylined, and that they take off. And, of course, as they take off, he draws his bow. He's sidestepping, trying to get a shot.
Right.
It's like, man, if you'd have just stayed low and taken your time, those elk had no idea that you were there. You would have smoked either one of those bulls. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just having that patience and experience. And, you know, the thing with elk is even in wide open, very little cover, if you're moving slow and you're not standing up, you might have to butt crawl or belly crawl. But if you're below the brush, they have no idea. And if you're moving slow, you can slip right in.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yep.
Because I've even done that with mule deer.
Yeah.
Coos deer, I can't do that. Like, you can a little bit, but you better, like, whatever you do with mule deer or elk, you better multiply it times 1,000.
Right.
As you
they
see
are so turned on, man.
They just see everything.
Yeah.
Every little flicker.
Yep. I'm kind of glad we got off the mountain. See that lightning?
Yeah.
No, yeah, with elk, and I've done it in the past too, multiple times, is you're able to slip, even when you think it's not a stockable stock. If you can stay just below the brush, if you have to belly crawl, if you have to slide on your butt and inch your way down there, you can do that and get very, very, very close.
I learned that in Alberta when I got invited down there a couple times, and I was hunting mule deer. That was that changed my world, because you got to stalk $2 or $3 a day,
right,
almost, and it's just wide open, and you're just sliding through the grass.
Yep.
And as long as you were as long as you were within like a foot and a half of the ground, you can just move in plain sight and just move right up to these animals.
Yep. As long as
and
you're not,
elk are even easier.
Right. And I think the biggest thing is like just making sure you're not moving quick.
Yeah.
Because when you move slow, even if you're almost at a distance, standing up or crouched over, or if you have like 2 or 3 guys and you're kind of crowded together and you move slow, they'll look at you, but they're like, oh, it's not really a human because you're not standing straight up. You're not skylining yourself, They don't get near as jittery and skittish. And when you're slipping down on them, I mean, it might be painful. It might suck. But when you...
It takes hours.
It takes hours. But when you do that, you're like almost guaranteeing yourself to be successful.
Yeah, you had to, in plain sight of all the elk, you had to close the distance from basically 140 yards. You had to weave through cows.
Yep.
Weave through spikes and bulls and stuff, and a raghorn.
Yep.
You had to weave through all that stuff, inch by inch, in broad view.
Right.
Like, you're not hidden at all, other than you're just moving slowly, and you're basically just in grass and sage on your back.
Yep.
On your butt, me and you both, and we're just inching our way in the wide open.
Yep.
Straight to these elk.
Literally on our butts.
On our butts. And, our heads are up, like, looking around, but we're moving real slow, and we just inch our way down, and it takes a couple hours, but that's why I like to get started early.
Yeah.
So that you're not rushed, because they'll get up a couple of times this week already. We would have probably killed, except that the bull got up and left before we were in.
I know I said it on like the first podcast we did together, and even after that, it's like the best time to kill a bull is between like 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock.
Yep.
Because almost that whole time, those bulls, they might get up, turn around, bed back down, whatever.
Yep.
But they're bedded down that whole time. Where you get closer to that 4 o'clock, they're getting up, they're wanting to feed. They've been laying down all day. They're rutting harder, exactly. And I mean, we've seen how it works. Those midday, you just put the stalks on, and we've got close. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of dudes don't realize in open country. For example, that guy today, that archer today. He did the right thing. We actually talked about this is how we're going to do it, because we were going to go kill that bull.
Yep.
We were like, this is a gift. When you see him like that, you're like, this is a gift. The guy did exactly what we were going to do.
Yep.
Went around, got the wind right, dropped into the cut, came through the center of the cut, and was within 30 yards or something.
Yep.
Now, the problem was he was on 2 feet. He was on his feet.
Yep.
If he had been on his hands and knees, and he also got there way too fast.
Exactly.
Like, you can't be moving. It's like the slow hand of a clock.
Yep.
The hour hand of the clock. You're moving that fast. If he had just taken his time, another hour to get to that spot, like you or me, we would have inched our way below the level of the sage, on our chest, belly crawled, or we'd have been on our butts. And we'd have crept through the sage right up to that crest. And even if the bull stood up because he heard something or whatever, he'd look around, and after a while he doesn't see anything, he lays back down.
Yep. Because
it's really tempting to go, well, I'm going to stay on my feet because it's a lot easier to stay standing.
Exactly.
Or even you'll see guys like crouching down on their feet, and it's like, no, get your butt on the ground.
Exactly.
Get your chest on the ground.
It's not comfortable. I've got scratches all down my back, my butt.
Thorns all over me.
Exactly. But it works, man.
He would have been able to sneak right in there. The wind was going to be good for hours.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then he just could have waited till that bull stood up while laying there in the sage, maybe on his butt, sitting there. And when his head's down, come to full draw and smoked him.
Yep.
The thing is, you just have to get that right scenario.
Yep.
And so far we've had 3 scenarios that have been basically like that, where everything
picture perfect
worked out and we were able to do what we planned to do. We haven't actually blown. No, we did get winded twice.
Yeah. Early, but
on the first few days,
we pushed it. We were gambling. Like the one day we were coming out to go restock food, so we pushed it.
We had not. I had run out of food like a day earlier than that. We were like out there longer than we. In fact, when we came out after that week-long stint, I haven't been that dehydrated or hungry in a long time.
It takes a lot to keep up with these young bucks. You and Ryan, you guys take it easy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but that day we did push it on that bull. But for the most part, we've just been ghosting, hiding, watching these bulls, waiting for them to be in a killable spot, and then we've been able to move in. We've backed out a number of times because we just didn't have the angle or the opportunity.
Right.
We haven't really blown hardly any elk out. We just haven't. It takes time to find the right situation and then strike.
Yep, exactly.
We got more days left, and the plan is to continue doing what we're doing.
Yep, exactly. It's been fun. We've had a lot of successes, and just more days to come.
Yeah, I think, man, it's been fun.
Yep,
it's been fun. It's been hard though.
It's been a grind, and that's the thing is like elk are not easy because it's always work. If you're spending days. The big thing for us is water. We've had to pack a lot of water, and that adds up a lot into your pack. You could have a 35, 40-pound pack, but then we put water on it, and you got a 65-pound pack.
Yeah, I'm curious now, though, as the weather's turned a bit and it's gotten a lot colder.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious, like with the weather changing, and it's a lot colder. I mean, it just snapped, cold snap hit. How much less water we might be drinking.
Right.
Because so much of it was the 100-degree days.
Exactly.
And so you're just like, you just need so much water.
I know for me, even like today.
I was drinking way more water than I normally drink.
Today I drank a couple bottles and then another one on the way out, versus before I was drinking a full 3 liters.
Right.
Within the first couple hours of the day. And it's like, come back, and every other day we had to go get water.
Yeah.
Where if we're now, those longer, colder days, we probably don't need as much water.
Right.
So,
well, we're going to wrap this podcast up. We'll get back to you in another episode here coming up. But so far, it's been a good hunt. We got a few days left.
Fun. Yep. Let's get it done.
More tag. All right. Stay gritty, folks.